Greetings, I'm Rachel Walker, a second year psychology major from Atlanta, Georgia, and my item was do-rags. So I have like 4 different ones in different colors. And yeah, so why I chose this item was my chapter was chapter 10, which focused on race, racism, ethnicity. And I chose a do-rag because I feel like do-rags are like a symbolization of like African American culture, viewed through like society's eyes. So my theory I chose was symbolic interactionism, which basically states that an item can basically signify or symbolize something bigger than what it is. So I chose a do-rag because in African American culture, a do-rag is seen as, fashion, to protect whose ever hair is underneath it, if it's waves, locks, braids, we wear it now to kind of signify like our drip or how we're going to wear it for the next day. And I chose that because in African American culture it's understood, whereas on the other side, being society how it's perceived, like it can be seen as like thuggish, gangster like, misinformed, miseducated, and things like that. So when the chapter talked about race and about racism, I automatically thought about like what racism in America looks like today. So for us as African Americans, a lot of people say right now we're in the middle of a mass genocide of young black males, and that's our definition of racism. So I have a little brother who's about 15, and I really thought about him because these are essentially his do-rags, and this is something he loves to wear. However, my mom doesn't let him ever wear them out the house. So it drew the question to why is it that something that's so understood among our community as fashion, as protection of our hair, perceived on the society side as something that's so dangerous and so thuggish. So it brought up the question of what is racism, where does it come from, how is it structured, what does it look like. So like with all of that, I connected it to the chapter because it all comes down to how we look and how we're perceived. So a reason why my younger brother can't go out the house wearing a do-rag is because how we perceive it in the African American community, and even within our household, it's not how society perceives it. So a lot that ties into a lot what racism is in general, because a lot of times we perceive things based off stereotypes, based off other forms of discrimination, based off what we read in school, what we're being taught in school, and oftentimes that's not even the truth or what's actually happening. So I also could connect it with the conflict theory. I wanted to choose this theory as well because it basically states that conflict is the reason like certain things happen the way they do in society. And I really thought about police brutality because this is something that us as African Americans are constantly getting faced with every day because we see it on the news, we hear about it, it may even happen within our own families. So with that being said, it's like conflict, like police and African Americans have some type of conflict that is the reason why society is kind of like the way that it is. But it also ties back into like institutionalized racism, which is racism like based within a structure. So that was also in the chapter, and I thought about that too when it comes to police, how it's set up, the law, how it's set up. It's not really in favor of the black man or the black man's rights, or even African American, or even all minorities, because you have brown men, Hispanic men who go through the same things, but not often because of how they're looked or how they're perceived, because Hispanics can wide in, how they look in terms of white and things like that, but African American, you kind of see it and So that's why I chose this for my chapter. I also chose do-rags because it's something that is so common in common everywhere really now, and something so small, but it's so significant because little things like that in our wardrobe like depict on how people see us, especially for black men. You can't wear your pants a little bit too low. You can't wear this color shirt in this area. You can't wear this hat in this area, and things like that. And I automatically thought about things like Trayvon Martin, because he had on a simple hoodie and he was perceived as a thug, where he was 14 years old. So that's why I chose this for my chapter. That's all I got. Also, tying into how we perceive things, a lot of times society not only perceives us as African American as wearing certain things, but even other minorities such as Muslims, and when they wear their hair wraps, it's perceived as they're part of the Taliban, they're aggressive, they're terrorists. and just small little things like that that show how racism is constructed within our society. So that's why I chose do rags, because it tied into my race and how that affects the people around us.